Chapter 19 Triumph and Defeat. The taste of triumph had been so clear to him, so present and vivid. Sir Donovan had been able to savor it like a copper coin upon his tongue, redolent of cold blood and hard enough to bite upon. Now, at the very moment of victory, this reversal, so unlike the previous sally against his redoubt, and so utterly unexpected, conducted by people who knew what they were doing. He chased the man in the billycock hat out into the hallway, but he had halted, disbelieving and horrified to find Lynch, wide-eyed and quite dead upon the porch tiles, lying in a blood of brains omelet. By the time he gathered himself, the big man was gone, and he became aware of shouts and cries from all around the walls. He burst into the kitchen to find two of his men fighting a small fire there. "There's nothing for it to burn, you damn idiots," he snapped. "The house is under siege. Take guns and defend it. Don't leave the building, just stop them getting in." Somebody tried the back door, and Sir Donovan fired 3 bullets through the wood, though he doubted he'd hit anyone beyond. Leaving his men to defend that quarter, he went to rally the rest of his troops. He ran back into the dining room to find Miss Cerulia Trent, still restrained but wearing an indisputable expression of triumph. He tore the gag from her mouth, its usefulness now moot. "Your people?" he snapped at her. "I do not know, but they seem very intent upon killing you. I cannot help but approve." "Well, I'm not done yet." Behind a section of paneling was a small concealed cupboard, presumably once intended as a store for the table silver or the decanters. Whatever its original purpose, Matthias had reworked it as a relay and control box, connecting the great chair and the laboratory below. Sir Donovan had been looking forward to making a ceremony of this, but instead it would do well at this juncture as a small act of retaliation that smacked of spitefulness. There was a rotating spidery contact disc, its contacts like silver legs mounted upon an oaken board. He twisted it from its customary position, connecting the chair to the sensory equipment where it could assess the supernatural potentials of media and spiritist, to a position that connected the chair to the psychic capacitors powering the barrier device in the cellar. Mounted on the cupboard wall by it was a bayonet switch, above from which a light began to glow dimly. This, Matthias had explained with painful slowness the week before, indicating the apparatus was working. The lights would abruptly glow at full intensity when the capacitors were fully charged. Not that he needed any such assurance that the chair was doing its work. The low groan of pain from Miss Trent was enough to satisfy him of that. Matthias told me that the extraction process would be agony. He also told me that when the machine has extracted every drachm of psychic energy from its subject, from you will crumble into dust and bones. I shall admit I am very much looking forward to seeing that. Congratulations, Miss Trent. You shall be the first of your race to die in the coming Holocaust, but very, very far from the last. One of his men rushed in at that moment of triumph to sour somewhat. "We can't hold them, boss. They're coming at us from every direction, and I think they outnumber us. They're sure to get in." "We're not done yet, lad. I have a trick or two up my sleeve. Back to the fight, but on no account leave the house, understand? Tell the others that too." As the man ran out, Sir Donovan took something from the cupboard, walked to the great chair, and crouched by it to look Miss Trent, her head lowered in pain, in the eye. "Recognize this?" He held up a cube of greenish stone, perhaps 3 inches along its side, the sides crisscrossed with shallow grooves incised in a complex weaving pattern. Miss Trent glanced at it, and her eyes widened enough for him to know that he had managed to disconcert the usually serene mind that dwelt within the frame of Miss Cerulia Trent. "I see you do. Then you know what's coming? There is no hope for you here, Yithian." Cerulia Trent watched Sir Donovan stride from the room, leaving her abandoned in the partial darkness of the dining room. She could feel the chair leeching her energies, and despite her most concentrated efforts, she could not slow the process at all. It is a vile thing to be offered hope at the 11th hour, only to have it snatched away. A false pardon on the morning of execution. Things might still go wrong for Sir Donovan. His plan had been thrown into disarray by the attack, and that increased its chance of failure, but even she knew that the odds still stood at better than even. The attack had come as a small miracle, but perhaps too small to change anything. Then a head appeared furtively at the door, and in a moment William Grant was at her side. "Lizzie! Oh, dear God, Lizzie! I thought you were dead, girl." He saw her bonds and started trying to release them. "Let's get you out of here. Oh, by all that's good, I thought I'd lost you, Lizzie Whittle." "Donovan Clay," she managed to gasp past her agony. "I came looking for him. Got into a bit of a scrap in the study, laid some fella out, then thought to look—" "No!" she snapped, silencing him. "Clay will kill us all. One chance left. You must do as I say." "Whatever you want, Lizzie, just as soon as I get you out of this chair." He fumbled with the straps, but they were strong, and he was belatedly realizing, locked. He would have to get a good knife to carve through the leather. "No," she said, and he stopped and blinked at her. "I do not matter. Save my people, William Grant. I beg you, save my people." "But, Lizzie..." Since Lizzie Whittle had ceased to be Lizzie Whittle in any true sense, it had been painfully apparent to him that Miss Cerulia Trent was not only not the same person, but barely a person at all. She thought and acted on the basis of pure logic and curiosity, and there was barely a flicker of anything called emotion in her now. But perhaps in the same way that one's behavior may change to more closely match the mode of new clothes or a new home, a little of Lizzie Whittle had somehow rubbed off onto the mind that possessed her body now. "Please," said Miss Cerulia Trent, and there were tears in her eyes. William Grant looked into those eyes for a moment, then nodded curtly. "What would you have me do, Cerulia?" Sir Donovan Clay, a traitor to all but himself, gained the house's attic room and went swiftly to the circular gable window there. Beyond it, swathed in night, were the fields and commons eastwards of Barking, and out there in one such field, Sir Donovan held up the strange cube of stone, and he contemplated it. It was not quite a cube in reality, the angles being slightly off. The asymmetric weave of lines inscribed across its surface seemed random at first, but on closer inspection, a pattern became apparent in his mind, and as the pattern grew clearer to him, so the pattern on the cube shifted slightly to accommodate his perception of it. He disliked the cube, disliked how studying it generated ideas in his mind that were smooth and soapy and slipped away when he tried to examine them, first one or two, and then multiplied until his mind felt as active as a goldfish pond at feeding time, and with as little discernible pattern. He loathed the sensation, but he understood its necessity because it meant the cube was drawing from him in its own small way, in much the same fashion as the machine was currently draining Miss Trent. He would get a mild neuralgia at the end, and his sanity would be slightly abraded by the experience, although he never noticed this because how could he? It would be worth it, though. It had to be worth it. The alien thoughts multiplied and swarmed, and finally, they slipped from his brain and his mind and his skull and darted off unseen into the dark night. If they stayed still and thought particular thoughts, the stupid apes could not see them. So, the one and the other stood in the day and then in the night and thought particular thoughts, and the few stupid apes who had come by had barely glanced in their direction. The ones who would wipe their eyes and rub their skulls as if something was awry there, and not noted the presence of the one nor the other, had not noted how the light distorted there, or how no birds would fly nearby, or how there were 3 great solitary footprints in the field, as broad as a tall man is tall, with 5 toe marks set around, regularly spaced. Their histories since the great race of Yith had abandoned a long past present was not heavily marked with event. They had been the fungus who had come to the abandoned city beneath the desert sands from distant Yugoth, and that they had captured and mutilated that it might never leave again. There had been the apes who found the city a millennium or 2 ago, and these the ones had handily slaughtered. The apes, showing an unexpected and unwarranted sophistication, had set psychic wards and defenses against the ones, and they had found it difficult to wander from the city. Then, fortuitously, another clan of apes had arrived, pale and loud and smelling of smoke and solvents, and they had ventured down. The ones had largely slaughtered these apes too, eager to be left in a morbid peace, but one had contrived to communicate and shown fitting subservience in slaughtering several of the other apes, thereby lifting the bounds that had been placed upon the city. Further negotiations were conducted, and the stupid ape agreed to help them in a plan that had been maturing since they captured the Yugothian. The ones were not capable of lying. The creative act of mendacity was both beneath and beyond them, and they had explained what the appalling cost to the apes' fellows would be, how many millions of them must die. This, the ape concluded, was acceptable as long as it got to rule the survivors. The ones did not care about which stupid apes ruled which other stupid apes, and so agreed. The true prize was the planet's strategic significance, after all, not which tribe of idiot primates was in ascendance over the other idiot primate tribes. They had given the leader ape an artifact that made it think in a way that was useful to the ones. It had required several attempts, but now the creature could gaze at the artifact and have its thoughts reordered into a practical pattern that allowed the feeble matter of its simian brain to resonate at a frequency perceivable to the ones. It was akin to the yapping of a servile dog, and it had brought them from halfway around the world to the edge of the smoking mess the apes flattered themselves was a city. Now they heard the yapping again, and sensed a note of desperation within it. The ape was failing in its task. The one and the other ceased troubling to think themselves invisible, raised their cyclopean 5-toed feet, and advanced towards the source of the signal. The weather was becoming angrier by the second. A great circling wind around the house of Sir Donovan Clay, making the trees sway and sweep across open grass, making it appear like a wave. While the weather was curiously oppressive, however, it still gave the sensation of being natural, but summoned up by unnatural means. There was nothing at all natural about the wind that struck. Alfie Moyes and two more of Charlie Briggs's men, as they ducked around the outside of the property and advanced on the house, looking for an unattended room to break into. They had disturbed some of Sir Donovan's men, who had fired blindly into the night, forcing Alfie and the others to seek shelter back at the edge of the copse of trees. Seeing that they were not being pursued, they then advanced cautiously across the croquet lawn when Alfie had the strangest feeling that they were being watched, and not with benign interest. He looked up and saw what he at first took to be a cloud of smoke, but before his gaze, it solidified and he became aware of eyes in the cloud looking back at him. Of slowly whipping flagella, of teeth, and a strange dissociated hatred that tasted like vinegar in his mind. Then the awful teeth grew further apart. The whistling that he had taken to be the high wind in the house's eaves grew suddenly so much more intense, and he realized that the smoke had a mouth. The smoke breathed out upon him and his comrades, a cone of whirling destruction that stank of the seabed and gave damps and possessed of a violence that made a hurricane seem the slightest zephyr in comparison. He did not die immediately, but he was so concussed by the fury of the blow that he was barely aware of his eyes exploding, his eardrums collapsing, of the very clothes being stripped from his flesh, and then the flesh from his bones. He scattered, no more than debris from a butcher's floor, while one of his comrades was thrown over the hedge a quarter of a mile down the road, and the other ended up tangled and impaled in a tree. This was the least action of the first of the ones, and the actions of the other and the other echoed it in dispassionate ferocity. "What in blue blazing buggery is that?" demanded Charlie Ninefingers of no one as he rounded the corner of the house and saw a cloud of half-seen meat extend a tentacle and impale one of his men, and then casually fling his corpse so high into the air that it was immediately lost in the darkness. Charlie made his decision immediately. It was one thing to go up against a comparably sized gang of treasonous Australians, but nobody had mentioned the Aussies might have forms of distilled nightmare at their beck and call, nor yet that these entities might be so remarkably good at killing. "Fall back, lads! Save yourselves, the battle's lost!" Obeying his own orders, he ran back the way he had come and looked for safe passage from the grounds of the house. This, he realized, might be more trouble than he'd anticipated. Two more of the awful things had taken station beyond the garden hedges, cutting off their retreat. His surviving men rapidly gathered around him and, in desperation as much as trust, awaited his command. Charlie was famously cunning rather than clever, and right then he felt how a fox might when cornered by no less than the hounds of 3 hunts. There was only one thing for it. "We go to ground, lads. Those things are big and we're small. Sort yourself away in any corner you can find. It's hide and go seek for your lives, boys. Don't make it easy for 'em." Sir Donovan Clay watched the forces of his oppressors scatter like chaff before the attentions of his patrons, and he saw it was good. He mused on that phrase as he descended through the house. It might be useful to create a religion around himself. People are far less likely to question the utterances of a holy figure, especially when he has supernatural forces at his beck and call to smite the unbelievers. He would have to make some notes. He had been so very focused on ensuring his victory, he had not fully considered how he was to run the world afterwards. Divvying up the planet amongst his men, his surviving men, he reminded himself. Poor Lynch. Now somebody else would get China. It was very nearly the limit of his planning, and he could see now that it was inadequate. Yes, he would say that what had gone before had been evil and decadent, and he had torn down these houses of the wicked to take the world into a brighter future. That would do it. If people were told on a regular enough basis that it was the truth, they'd start to believe it as their memories of the old world faded. Perhaps he could even manage to herd the world into some sort of golden age. Donovan the Good, the history books would call him, even if he had to write them himself to make sure of it. Such happy musings carried him down the stairs and back into the dining room. A couple of his men accosted him in the hallway, wide-eyed and fearful that there's something proper crook going on outside. But he told them that it was all part of the plan, and that they were safe as long as they stayed inside the house until told otherwise. In the meantime, they were to watch from the windows for any further enemy activity. In the dining room, he found Miss Trent, still secure and still in pain, which cheered him further. "Not long now, my dear," he said, addressing the vessel rather than the content. He went to stand by the switch, taking the revolver from his pocket as he did so. He reloaded the spent cartridges as he spoke. "I regret to tell you that your friends have suffered a small reverse. They're currently dying horrible deaths." A scream sounded close by in the garden, making Sir Donovan jerk his head that way, his expression aghast. The scream ended suddenly with a wet, ripping sound. Something heavy and inert fell in two pieces on the grass. Sir Donovan forced a smile upon his face and insouciance into his voice. "There goes another one." He closed the revolver. Sweat ran down Miss Trent's brow. "They will kill you, too." "Oh, no. We have a deal, but I know that doesn't count for much. More importantly, we have a common purpose. They wish to eliminate your people, and in doing so, they will eliminate many of mine. After that, they want the planet, but they have no great interest in running it. But they do want it run. It may still be a useful asset to them. At the very least, they will require cities to be built. Great, windowless basalt affairs, I understand. Not very aesthetic, you may think, but really, have you seen them? Putting them somewhere without windows seems an excellent idea. Humanity shall raise these cities for them, as they once built the pyramids for more human masters. Although, he dropped his voice to a confidential, conversational tone. From what I gather, I'm beginning to wonder about even that. He examined the light above the bayonet switch, but its glow was still subdued. This is taking forever, and I am not a patient man. You cannot fight the device, madam. Give up your vital energies and let us be done. Resistance at this time seems only inconsiderate to me. Play!" Sir Donovan looked back to see William Grant in the doorway, a revolver pointed shakily at him. "Let her be, you bastard. I swear I'll kill you if I have to." "Mr. Grant," said Sir Donovan, turning to face him. Too late, Grant saw the pistol in his hand. Sir Donovan shot him without hesitation. Grant's revolver tumbled from his fingers to clatter uselessly to the floorboards. He fell to his knees, then pitched forward onto his face. An idiot to the very last, Grant, said Sir Donovan, coming over to kick Grant's pistol away. Grant groaned miserably, breathing in small, ragged gasps. You should have just fired, you know. Now you're going to bleed to death while your lady love here turns to ashes, and I win. I want that to be your last thought, you ridiculous little charlatan. I win. He glanced back at the bayonet switch just as the light flickered and suddenly blazed strong. He grunted with satisfaction, went to the cupboard, and laid his hand upon the switch handle. Perhaps I should give a little speech at this time. It seems the done thing. But since my entire audience will be dead very soon and my words will be lost, I don't think I shall bother beyond repeating what I now realize is my favorite phrase in all the world. He grinned fiercely at Mr. William Grant and Miss Cerulean Trent. I win. He threw the switch.